Today on the Commanders Report, the Washington Commanders got some more bad injury news as they prepare to take on the Miami Dolphins in Madrid this weekend. Also, the Commanders signed a veteran edge rusher. I'll let you guys know who that is and why I think it's a good pickup for this defense. Then we'll talk about whether or not the Washington Commanders, currently sitting at 3-7 in their season essentially being over, should they sit Jayden Daniels for the rest of the way and make sure that he's healthy for the start of the 2026 campaign. We'll have that discussion at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around. But this week, we are taking on the Miami Dolphins in Madrid, and we're also taking on the Miami Dolphins in our sub-battle this week. Whichever channel gets the most new subscribers wins, and even though the Commanders certainly aren't winning on the field, we can win off the field. We are currently just 2 subscribers behind Dolphins Today, and I bet Dolphins Today host Nick Roloff a steak dinner, all right, at Nick and Sam's, the nicest steakhouse here in Dallas. Whoever gets the most is going to get the steak dinner, and the other person that loses has to pay for it. So I don't want to pay for that dinner, man. I want him to pay for my steak dinner. So if you guys can help me out here, if you're a new viewer, you haven't clicked that subscribe button yet, but you want daily and extensive Commanders coverage, click that subscribe button to help get me a steak dinner from Dolphins Today host Nick Roloff. All right, so let's get into the injury news to start today's show. And it's more bad news, man. Of course, yesterday we get the Trey Amos news that he's broken his fibula and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. Now Treylon Burks, the newly signed wide receiver, formerly released by the Tennessee Titans. He actually made some nice plays last week against the Lions. He's going to miss this week's game in Madrid after getting finger surgery this week. He did not travel with the team. Now, the silver lining to this one is that it's not considered serious. He's probably going to be able to return after the bye week when they play the Denver Broncos on Sunday Night Football. But, certainly it sucks to already have a Treylon Burks injury, because what was the thing that he was known for in Tennessee is that he was always injured. He showed flashes, but then he would get injured, and then it would just continuously derail his development. And I thought that he showed some really good things. He made some nice hands catches in traffic versus the Lions. He had a really nice 30-plus yard reception down the sideline where he used his body and his physicality to do a subtle push-off and caught the ball with his hands down the sideline, tracked the ball really well. I think Treylon Burks has shown some really good things, and the coaching staff have raved about this young man. So really excited to see what he's going to be able to do the rest of the season. But it's yet another injury to the wide receiver core. You're not going to have Terry McLaurin this weekend, not going to have Noah Brown, and now you're not going to have Treylon Burks. And that leaves you now with this group here. You got Deebo Samuel, who is really your only starting level player that's still playing, and even he's limited in terms of the things that he can do. He's not, the route runner extraordinaire. He's not a true deep threat. He's very limited in the things that he can do as a true wide receiver. Then you got Chris Moore, who's had drop issues this year, Robbie Chosen, who's done some good things this year, but certainly isn't my first choice to be your starting wide receiver heading into a football game in the National Football League. Jalen Lane has had some nice moments as a deep threat, but he's had drop issues and fumble issues this year. And then Ja'Cory Brooks hasn't even made an active day roster this entire season. But honestly, you might want to give him a couple of looks. He had some really good moments during the preseason. He's got some good size. I would want to see Ja'Cory Brooks get a helmet this week versus Madrid and see what he can do coming off the practice squad. But speaking of practice squad, the Commanders have signed defensive end Demarcus Walker, longtime veteran, formerly with the Chicago Bears. So he's got over 25 sacks in his NFL career, kind of a bigger body defensive end. And for a defense that has lost both of its starting defensive ends in both Dietrich Wise and Dorrance Armstrong, it's nice to get somebody of a similar size to those guys. 280 pounds. He passed the age of 30 couple years ago, but he's got 42 career starts. I'm guessing he's going to start every game down the stretch. He did make the trip to Madrid this week. He's had 100 career games played in the National Football League over the course of an 8-year NFL career. So this guy's been around the block, and during that time, very consistently putting up, not like terrific sack production, but he's been a contributor for teams, across the league for quite a while now. With Chicago, he played in all 17 games last year, had 3.5 sacks, had 3.5 the year before that. So pretty consistent in that regard as kind of a early down kind of specialist, good run defender, really stout, all that different stuff. His career year came in 2022, though, with 7 sacks. So we've seen some good things from Demarcus Walker throughout his career, I think, in terms of the current crop of free agent defensive ends that you could have brought in. I think that he's probably among the top of the list of guys that you could have brought in at this point. I think this is a positive signing. Now, we'll see at 31 years old just how productive he can be. But, he fits the mold of what this defense frankly needs at the edge. Especially with how bad we've seen this Commanders run defense be on the perimeter and how they're not able to set the edge and all this different stuff. When they were actually able to set that edge with Dietrich Wise and with Dorrance Armstrong earlier in the season, this run defense was actually pretty good, all right? Forcing those running backs in between the tackles, which obviously help out a guy like Bobby Wagner who can't go sideline to sideline. It just helps out this run defense a whole lot when you have guys that can actually set an edge. And Demarcus Walker at 280 pounds is certainly capable of doing that, or at least in theory, he should be able to do that. He is coming off the pine, though, so I guess we'll see how he plays in Madrid on Sunday morning. However, adding a nice defensive end, one of them is just not going to be close to fixing this defense. Unless you're adding another starting quality defensive end, unless you give me a replacement for Bobby Wagner at inside linebacker, unless you give me a brand new secondary with good players on it, like this defense is not going to get better, man, unfortunately. But it should help you in the short term. You're getting these kind of micro improvements. You're taking Joe Witt Jr. off the mic. You're bringing Dan Quinn into the play caller role this week, bringing in a guy like Demarcus who can certainly set the edge. He's a fine player. So even though, these changes probably aren't going to be, game changers or anything like that, it's not like this team is all of a sudden going to get into playoff contention because of these two kind of moves. But, it's a move in the right direction, and at least it might give this team a little bit of a chance to evaluate other talent as the season goes on here as we prepare for the 2026 season. So coming up here on the Commanders Report, talking about the 2026 season and preparing for Jayden Daniels' return to this team. Should Jayden Daniels sit out the rest of this year to make sure that he fully heals up that arm for the 2026 campaign? Or should he come back if he's 100%? We'll have that discussion here in just one moment. But first, let's have word from our sponsor today. You guys can go to chatsports.com/salute25 to get this really snazzy-looking Salute to Service sweatshirt this year for the Washington Commanders. You've got the Army Green, and the reason why I like this year's design, guys, over kind of previous seasons is that they would go very heavy camo in their Salute to Service gear previously, and, there's nothing wrong with camo. It's just not really my style, but I really like Army Green. I think that it works with a lot of different stuff. You can wear, blue jeans with this. You could wear with darker jeans. You could do a bunch of different stuff with this style of hoodie. And you've got the classic America branding there on the sleeve there on the right side. And then you've got the Commanders logo on the chest. I just think it's a very modern, simple design, kind of minimal, and I really appreciate that from this year's design. So if you guys want to support the troops and you want to get this really stylish Commanders hoodie for either yourself or someone that you love for Christmas, it could make a great Christmas gift as well. You can go to chatsports.com/salute25. That link is down there in the comments and description of today's show. And every time you click that link and you make a purchase, part of the proceeds go back to us here at the Commanders Report. So not only can you get this hoodie today, but you can also help out the channel. If you want to kill those two birds with that one stone, you can go chatsports.com/salute25 to get this hoodie in your collection today. So Robert Griffin III, somebody that knows a thing or two about getting injured early on in his NFL journey with this organization and paying the price for it, gave some comments about Jayden Daniels' injury and why he thinks that the Commanders should shut Jayden Daniels down for the rest of the 2025 season, even if he's fully healthy down the stretch. This is what RG3 had to say on his podcast this week. I think they should sit Jayden out. I think they should sit Jayden Daniels out for the rest of the season. I know they're going to reevaluate him after the bye week, but if this team isn't playing for a playoff spot or anything substantial, they should hold him out for the rest of the year. Now, I actually think that there's a pretty coherent argument to be made for and against sitting Jayden Daniels out for the rest of the season. I think the case for sitting him out is, you're out of playoff contention, you don't want to risk further injury, and you want to make sure that he's 100% ready to go. You don't want to rush him back. Also, if Jayden doesn't play, that likely means more losses for the Washington Commanders down the stretch, and the more losses that you take on the season means a higher draft pick. All right, if you bring back Jayden Daniels and they win, let's say, 3 out of the last 4 or 4 out of the last 5, whatever it would end up being, and you go on a little bit of a run to finish the season, that's going to hurt your draft positioning in 2026. And you did it pretty much just to get Jayden Daniels on the field just cause, not to, be competitive and go to the playoffs. But there is a very good case for against sitting Jayden Daniels as well. All right, I think it's really hard to explain to NFL players in an NFL locker room who are putting their bodies on the line every single week, whether you're in playoff contention or not. All right, it's very tough for you to say, okay, our star player is back and fully healthy, but we're going to sit him. It's like, no, man, these guys want to win. All right, that's why they play the game, is to win these games. And once they get the sense that this organization is not trying to win games, that's a one-way ticket to losing an NFL locker room. All right, so if Dan Quinn doesn't want that, and I don't think he does, you give your team the best chance to win every single week. That's how you earn the respect of the players in the locker room. And even if you don't have any chance to go to the playoffs, these players want to be respected enough where you are trying to actively win games, because they are putting a lot at risk to play this game. Yes, they're getting paid a lot of money to play this game as well, but it's all about respect and all these different things with these people that are in the locker room. These people are human beings, and they want to win. And if you have a fully healthy superstar quarterback and you're saying, we're not going to play him, we're going to try and lose games, that's just a one-way ticket to losing the locker room. And then also you would be taking away valuable game reps from a young quarterback who is still developing. All right, I know Jayden is probably, out of all the quarterbacks in the league, he'd probably be among the first 8 guys that you would take right now for an entire season. He's that level good. He led this team in his rookie season to an NFC championship game, but he showed this year that he's not a perfect quarterback. He does need those game reps. And, if he's 100% healthy, I don't think it makes a ton of sense to keep him out in that scenario. So my take on the situation is that if there's any chance, if he's still dealing with any sort of injury or any discomfort or anything like that, you sit him, okay? You have to be really, really careful with Jayden Daniels. He is the future of the franchise, and you don't want to rush him back too early. But when he does get back to 100%, and there's no real reason not to play him, you should play him. You should get him those extra reps, and I think that those extra reps at the end of the season are going to do him and do this team a lot of good in preparation for 2026 to figure out what he can do well, what he can get away with, do some creative stuff at the end of the season here, because why not, and see what you can do with Jayden Daniels. Now, you probably run him less. You try to preserve his body, try to prevent another major injury, but I think that he needs the mental reps. He needs the game reps, and the more of those that he gets, the more prepared he's going to be the best quarterback that he can be for this football team during the 2026 season, and hopefully get this team back in Super Bowl contention next year. But another thing that RG3 pointed out on his podcast when he made these comments is that he does not think that Jayden Daniels' injury is anything like what he had, all right? And obviously there's a couple key differences. RG3, his injury was to his lower body, obviously. Jayden's was to his upper body, all those different things. But Robert Griffin III made it abundantly clear that he thinks Jayden Daniels is going to be able to bounce back, unlike what Robert Griffin III, unfortunately, went through here in Washington. This is what he had to say. But just know, my situation in D.C. and Jayden's, outside of the surface-level black quarterback, second pick, Heisman Trophy winner, hurt on the same yard line on the same field against the same team, it's not the same. But it's not the same as Jayden's situation. It's because of the organization. I tip my hat to Josh Harris and this team. I haven't spoken too much on my time in depth in D.C. I even scrapped a book because I didn't feel like it was the right time to have that conversation. Eventually, there will be a time to have that convo. So it certainly seems like Robert has some tea to spill on the Dan Snyder era in Washington. I'm guessing they probably really pressured him to get back on the field a bit too early, and that affected the way that his knee was able to heal. But what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments section. I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer to this question per se. I think there's reasonable arguments to be made for both sides of this argument here, but let me know, yes or no. Should the Washington Commanders shut down Jayden Daniels for the rest of the year, even if he gets back to 100% before the end of this season? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. That'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Really do appreciate you guys stopping by today. We'll have more Commanders coverage for you guys tomorrow. So if you don't want to miss any of that, click that subscribe button to help us win our sub battle this week versus Dolphins today and help me win that steak dinner.